you like me and hate other people, but still need that pretend sense of human companionship?
Please say hello to me.
Or maybe you're a likable extrovert who enjoys spending time with others online and offline. Blech. Either way, multiplayer games are here to entertain us.
And fill that void.
And not just on long, rainy days. And what better way to share some laughs with your buddies or make new friends
Come on, man!
than by playing a multiplayer game, specifically a co-op game. There are many types, and some even overlap, but the most popular is the PvE type. You, your friend, or friends, or even complete strangers team up and stand together to complete the game's objectives, whatever form they may take. Good co-op games evoke camaraderie and a sense of collective accomplishment.
I'm building the world's smallest trophy for you.
And the best ones not only make teamwork fun and rewarding, but also make your mistakes, whether accidental or deliberate, memorable. Yeah, didn't mean to, sorry. In the last couple of decades, there have been a lot of quality picks. Some not strictly co-op, but still extremely fun with a friend. And because there are way too many to try, sometimes a good one slips through your fingers. All you remember is hearing about it, watching a solid review, or catching a trailer and thinking, damn, I wish I'd played that. And so, around 2015, I remember watching a trailer for a little cute game called Helldivers. I couldn't buy it back then, but what really stood out, besides the basic co-op premise, was the slight satirical tone that reminded me of Starship Troopers, and the fact that the game didn't skimp on gore or enemies to slaughter. And what really stuck with me was this one image in the beginning, which I immediately saved as wallpaper. Somehow I thought it was the coolest thing, and I remember thinking to myself, this would be absolutely amazing as a first or even third-person shooter. Meh. Too bad it's never gonna happen. But then in 2023 I saw another trailer, and when I realized what this was, yeah, I wasn't going to skip this one.
Sorry.
So, in 2024, Helldivers 2, Super Earth Strikes Back, released. And like a good Helldiver, I dropped in feet first with high expectations. To my surprise, the game did not just meet them, it blasted them out of orbit. At first glance, it looks like your usual co-op game. At first glance. You play as a Helldiver, a futuristic soldier in a galactic war, on a mission to vanquish the enemies of Super Earth. From the galaxy map aboard your own spaceship, which you can name by the way, you choose a planet, then either solo or with up to 3 comrades, you hell dive down in a hell pod, hell bent to spread freedom.
Freedom forever!
Well, actually to complete objectives against computer-controlled enemies. And these objectives mostly consist of killing and destroying things. Boom, bam, splat, mission completed. Pick another planet or front and repeat. This loop may seem ordinary, but the game's strength lies in the care behind all its polished components. And each of those components, either on their own or working together, elicit immensely satisfying feelings. At least most of the time, because this is also a game that is notorious for its bugs. Yes, these too, but I mean these bugs. Sometimes they can be funny, and sometimes they can be downright game-breaking. Yet even with that broken edge, the core experience is so solid that you almost forgive it. Almost. So what is the core of the experience and why is it so solid? Well, that will take some digging into. So grab your favorite bug burger while I get out my favorite entrenchment tool, and let's start digging, as deep as it goes. Firstly, this being third-person/first-person if you needed shooter, Arrowhead, the developers of the game, understood they needed to do one thing right. Guns, guns, and more guns. The weapons in this game feel incredibly powerful and satisfying, whether you're using primary, secondary, support, explosive, mounted, or special gear. The vast majority come across as weighty, effective, and packing a proper punch. I mean, look at this. I say vast majority because the game offers a huge arsenal, and when there is a lot of choice, there will be some unfavorable ones. In a game full of varied enemies, where you're exterminating a lot of bugs, spilling oil from many robots, and turning a lot of squids into sushi? Yeah, okay. Having weapons that suit different playstyles was essential. It's not perfect, but I think Arrowhead delivered on this front. The weapon system and the way you deal damage is also more complex than it initially appears. I'm not going to bore you with detailed stats because honestly, I don't completely understand them myself. But basically, most enemies have different levels of armor, and your weapons have different levels of armor penetration, or AP. Depending on what you're using, you'll deal different amounts of damage. And of course, enemies usually have weaker and tougher parts of armor, so you actually need to aim. With most guns anyway.
Get some! Get some!
It goes surprisingly deep, and the game doesn't explain all of it, but if you want, you can read up on everything. I recommend helldivers.wiki.gg. The great thing about this is that if you don't want to memorize enemy weak points or weapon stats in detail, you don't have to. The game shows you right in the middle of the action, and not just with the way enemies shed armor or even chunks of flesh, but with your crosshair as well. Oh, sorry, reticle. You hurt an enemy successfully? Red X. You hit an enemy, but they take reduced damage? White X. You deal no damage? A ricochet symbol pops up. And of course, you can actually see projectiles bounce off, so you know you need something stronger. You can learn all this naturally just by playing the game and having fun blowing things away. On one hand, in a game where you mostly shoot things, this level of detail in your main tools of liberation is really welcome. On the other, it can create problems on its own, but more on that later. My point is, the guns simply play and sound amazing. And the fact that you can see the gratifying effect they have on enemies as they tear them to shreds or blow them apart is a detail that's deeply appreciated. And we haven't even gotten to the juiciest part of eliminating your foes yet: explosions. Aside from handheld weapons of all kinds and boomsticks of plentiful variety, you also get access to a ton, or at least to 500 kilo, of airstrikes and orbital war crimes. I mean ordnance. Basically, you throw a spicy pokeball, a stratagem, at a location you want to obliterate, and watch it go boom. These stratagems are probably the only truly original thing about Helldivers, and they are a really fun mechanic. They're basically homing beacons you use to call down either hellpods, those deployment shell things filled with supplies or support weapons of all kinds, marked with a blue light, or to call in orbital and airstrike ordnance, marked with a red light. Once your mission starts, all of this is at your disposal, and you trigger different call-ins with different arrow sequences. To keep things fair, you only have a limited number of stratagem slots, so you'll need to think carefully about which ones to bring for each mission. Anyway, back to the booms. Orbital strikes from your super destroyer hit harder and wider, but take longer to recharge. In contrast, airstrikes are faster, can fire multiple times, and are delivered by Eagle 1 fighter jet. The orbital strikes are great, don't get me wrong, but there is no way you won't fall in love with the Eagle airstrikes. Most of them look and sound incredible, and they're easily the most fun to use. I can barely go on a mission without my trusty fighter support.
Coming in hot.
Oh, Eagle 1, I still dream about you.
Eagle 1, I love you!
Oh. Anyway, this was the first thing that blew me away when I first played the game. The explosions are absolutely spectacular. It's immensely satisfying to reduce a bunch of bots to scrap metal using a 500 kilo bomb, or to reduce fresh squid reinforcements to nothing by firing your handheld mini-nuke gun, or to start the biggest barbecue in the universe by throwing an orbital napalm barrage on top of dozens of sizzling bugs. The sound design, the visual spectacle, and the camera shakes all add up to one hell bomb of an experience. And the great thing is that you, and only you, and your teammates, are in charge of when and where to detonate. Sure, you can call in a perfect strike to close all the enemy bug holes at once or erase an entire enemy patrol with one hit, but you can also blow the democracy out of a lone enemy, a small city area, or a single outpost with absolute overkill. And as you can see, the explosions aren't just for obliterating your enemies. Sure, they are great for that, but they also affect the environment in a basic but satisfying way. Enemy structures, buildings, and even the ground itself react to being blown apart. If you want to dig a nice foxhole where there used to be a flat piece of land, you can. And it's always gratifying to look back and see a pile of smoking rubble where an enemy outpost used to be. The destruction isn't as detailed as something you'd see in the Battlefield series, but the main goal of these booms here, obliterating anything the enemy built with style, is pulled off satisfyingly well. And of course, there are the mishaps, which are, in my opinion, the most fun. I lost count of how many times I laughed when a badly thrown stratagem turned a tense firefight into chaos, with our Liberty exploding all over the place. Or how many times I accidentally killed myself because I panicked, not realizing the enemy was too close, and ended up becoming my own collateral damage. I know it's going to sound weird, but even dying here is fun. It's not the only thing, but in the end it's the combination of weighty weapons and spectacular explosions that make the core experience so solid. Every shot here carries the promise of something bigger about to go off. Sometimes it's a perfectly placed headshot, sometimes it's a 500 kilo reminder from Eagle 1, and sometimes it's the accidental blast that takes you with it. As you play, the weapons hit hard with satisfying force, and the explosions are just, well, bombastic. Right. With the juicy stuff out of the way, let's continue. Starting with the gameplay loop itself. As mentioned, the core is simple. You dive down and finish objectives while, delivering democracy to a lot of non-voters. We know the delivering part is fun enough on its own, but what Arrowhead manages well so far, with a few missteps, just saying, is keeping the gameplay interesting and players having fun long-term by providing plenty of variety, a sense of progression, and fun enough gimmicks. From the top, there are currently 3 factions you can choose to spread freedom to, each with plenty of enemy types. And each faction brings a unique gameplay experience, which is of course a good thing. Because when you get bored or fed up with fighting the automatons, who have significant firepower of their own, you can go hunt some Terminids, bugs, who are almost exclusively melee focused. Or you can defend the voters of Super Earth from the Illuminate invasion, which feels like fighting aliens from War of the Worlds. And all of your chosen battles unfold across a wide range of environments. Rocky terrains, rolling dunes, dense jungles, frozen plains, small towns, and massive cities. There is plenty of combinations of all of these, and though they are not endless, there is enough variety to keep the fighting interesting. Plus, what most people would agree is the best part of the gameplay is that all maps are procedurally generated, so you're almost always treading on new grounds. And even though smaller elements, like individual buildings or points of interest, are reused or have a limited number of variations, each battlefront still feels unique. And to be honest, I actually like that some elements stay the same. I think it feels more, well, realistic. I mean, think about it. If a militaristic society tried to colonize other planets, they would not waste time or resources hiring pretentious designers to give every outpost its own style. They would just stamp them out, cookie cutter style. 4 walls, airtight, sturdy enough? Good. Make 1 million of them. Because Lord knows Helldivers go through explosives like candy and don't lose sleep over collateral damage. Back on track, you can also choose between 10 difficulty levels, with more likely to come or to be modified. Decent variety shows up in objective types too. To succeed, you need to complete main objectives, but there are also plenty of optional ones. Some objectives appear across all 3 fronts, while others are faction specific. And of course, some are more fun than others. But most of them feel unique, exciting and entertaining enough. My favorite one, launching a nuke. Some side objectives even offer advantages for your current mission, giving you more incentive to complete them, like loading and activating artillery cannons, that your team can then use with your chosen loadout and stratagems. Or SAM sites, that will automatically fire on enemy ships within range. Or activating a LiDAR station. LiDAR? There's a dish, shouldn't it be radar? Let's just say DAR station, which reveals all points of interest and side objectives on your map. Completing more objectives gets you more XP and upgrade materials, letting you level up and unlock new fun ways to liberate.
Have a taste of your fun!
We already covered the wide range of weapons, but there are also plenty of armor sets with passive effects, weapon attachments, ship upgrades, patterns for many different stuff, and new stratagems. Though not everything's available from the start, and that brings us to progression. There are basically 2 types of progression. First, there's the base game system. This is an integral part of the game and allows you to unlock the most basic upgrades and stratagems. But with that, you also get the base game War Bond, which is a battle pass-like progression, unlock, catalog, page, DLC thing, filled with weapons, throwables, armor, emotes, and more, all unlocked using medals earned from missions. Above this, there's a second type of progression, the premium war bonds. Every few months, a new theme war bond drops, usually alongside a big update. The key thing is, they keep coming, and they bring not just more progression, but new ways to play. But the great part about this is how you unlock the new premium war bonds. See, when I first saw the word premium, maybe like you, I had a horrible feeling that to actually enjoy everything the game offers, I would have to pay, EA style. Nope, that's not the case here. All you've got to do is play, okay? To unlock a new war bond, you need 1000 super credits, which is the in-game currency. Side note, there are also legendary collaboration war bonds that cost more super credits, but they appear only rarely, so let's focus on the more frequent premium war bonds. Back to it. Now, sure, you have the option to purchase super credits with real money, but the operative word here is option. If you don't want to spend your hard-earned money on a warbond you're not even sure you'll enjoy, you don't have to. Super credits can actually be found in the game, on the battlefield. You can find a pile of either 10 super credits or 100, though the hundreds are really rare. Now getting to 1000, that sounds like a lot, and it would be, if not for the fact that when one person finds them, everyone on the team gets them. And if you want to unlock a new warbond fast, you can always go credit farming on lower difficulties. I kid you not, I got 150 credits from a single game while recording footage for this video. Sometimes you do get lucky, I guess. Each warbond also includes 3 stacks of 100 credits, so you get 300 credits back just by unlocking one. That means earning the 700 credits needed for a new warbond or a couple of armor sets from the superstore is just a matter of playing and having fun for a few weeks. I've unlocked every premium warbond to this day, and by managed democracy I promise you, I didn't spend a single penny of my own money. If this was in the hands of a greedy publisher, I'd have to sell my other kidney by now. The first one went to Nvidia. Now, would I call this the best way to push new content? No. I would argue that even today there are similar games with a more customer-friendly approach, at least for now. But what I would call this is a fair deal. See, the game gives you basically everything for free as long as you invest your time and keep playing. Of course, if you're a new player, do not play often, or simply lack the patience, the whole system can start to feel like a slow grind. But for me, playing has been fun over the last few years. By the time I had tested and fully enjoyed all the new content in a current warbond, I already had the credits to unlock the new one. So personally, I'm fine with the deal. The only thing I would change about the warbond system is excluding new stratagems from it, making them accessible for fun and testing out right away. Plus, tying them more frequently to major orders, we'll cover them in a bit, would be more fun, as it was with the orbital napalm barrage. Good times. But this is a small complaint, I don't mind all that much. Considering Helldivers 2 is a live service game, meaning frequent updates and a lot of ongoing work for the devs, Arrowhead could have easily gone down the dark road so many greedy companies take. But they didn't, and I applaud them for it. Okay, to be fair, Arrowhead's not perfect. There are a few exclusive items locked behind special purchases, and not every update is a hit. Some of you might remember the flamethrower controversy. Still, I cannot fault them too much here. The exclusive items are extremely limited compared to the pile of free content, and they really do seem to listen and make changes when the community pushes back.
We managed to f that up. And here we are, Power Maker great again. Yeah.
Or at least they did. After the Into the Unjust update, things seem to change for the worse. Or so it seems for now, but more on that later. And hey, if you're watching this from the future, there's a good chance some of what I said is already outdated. Let me know in the comments if that's the case. But for now, let's talk about the last thing that makes the game even more fun, the gimmicks. Now, I know the word usually has a negative connotation, but that is not how I mean it here. In Helldivers 2, they add more variety, urgency, and this live energy to the game. So these are, good. And the biggest one is the Galactic War. From the opening cinematic, to the training mission, to your first look at the galaxy map, oh, sorry, wrong clip, the game makes it clear, this is war, and you are not fighting alone. The galaxy is divided into sectors, and sectors contain planets. Each planet is either under your control or the enemy's. Now, there are a lot of details I'm skipping, but you don't need to learn all of them to understand the basics. By playing the game, you and every other active Helldiver contribute to the outcome of the war, deciding which planets and sectors get defended or liberated. Now, liberating a planet is no small task. It takes thousands of players and hundreds of completed missions. And if you are like me, with one Steam friend who last logged in 10 years ago, you might be wondering, how do I know which planets to focus on, when there are usually dozens to pick from? Well, you can look for the sectors with the most Helldivers in it, the game tells you, or you can follow another gimmick. Orders. Several times a month, a new major order drops. These are large community-wide objectives that usually last for about a week. They might give players a fun, over-the-top challenge, or push the war narrative forward, and you'll usually find the most Helldivers on the planets they target. Success or failure can unlock new sectors, shift enemy movement, or change the course of the war. The developers at Arrowhead live direct these orders, adjusting current and future ones based on how we perform. Now, if you want, you can of course play solo, choosing what front and what planet to helldive to, and you can even ignore your personal orders. But if you do help complete a major order, not only can you share in the rewards, it can also bring a sense of fellowship, camaraderie and collective struggle, and that's pretty rare in multiplayer games these days. Now, is the Galactic War effort perfect? No, it has several flaws, the biggest being that individual or small group effort rarely feel meaningful. But is it good enough and fun? Absolutely. And the last gimmick I want to mention makes things even more fun, and that's the special events. These are usually tied to major orders and can range from small additions like new enemy types or mechanics to massive shifts like the Illuminate invading Super Earth. Some events can even permanently change the galaxy, like the one that collapsed planet Meridia into a black hole. These one-time unique occasions often serve as a build-up to major updates, shake up the gameplay formula, or create shared experiences players still talk about months later. Some are so memorable or important that they reward those who took part with commemorative items, usually capes. They make the galaxy feel alive and the Galactic War more immersive, even if I still call them gimmicks. And why do I call them gimmicks? Well, because if you took away everything we've talked about, the Galactic War, the events, the orders, the core gameplay would stay the same, kill enemies and complete objectives. The war can never end, of course. There'd be no Helldivers 2 if it did. Arguably, the gimmicks are not as important for the gameplay as the variation or progression, which are the supportive pillars the experience leans on. There is plenty of variation in the enemies, the randomly generated battlegrounds, and the equipment. And because the game is live service, that pool keeps growing. And even though the objectives themselves can get a little stale, the real fun is in the moment-to-moment gameplay, not in pressing a button at the end of a mission, so to me it's easily forgiven. And progression, while most exciting at the start of your helldiving journey, also stretches further through new war bonds. And the fact that you can unlock everything just by playing the game and having a little patience is praiseworthy and ultimately good for players. So yeah, these two are probably more important. But you know what? I am really glad the gimmicks are here too. They might not hold up the game on their own, but they give it personality and flavor. And without them, Helldivers would be a lot less fun. Speaking of fun, one thing that still makes me smile, even after hundreds of hours, is the game's relentless, straight-faced satire.
Freedom from the burden of choice.
See, I'm a big fan of the old Paul Verhoeven movies, namely RoboCop, Total Recall, and of course Starship Troopers. When I was a kid, they entertained me endlessly with their premises and outrageous fun violence. But as I got older and started to look past the obvious, I found a new reason to love them. The subtle critique of many different things. Things like corporate greed, consumerism, media manipulation, this word I cannot properly pronounce in English, and in the case of my favorite movie, the not-so-sneaky satire of militarism, fascism, and war propaganda. Now, you can imagine how beside myself I was when I found out that Helldivers 2 is basically this movie in game form. At the very least, it's a better Starship Troopers game than the actual Starship Troopers game. And right from the opening cinematic, I knew I was going to have fun with the satirical tone. I won't go super deep into it because, well, you either get it or you don't. And if you don't, and you like Starship Troopers for the cool action and juicy visuals, good news, you'd make an excellent Helldiver. But if you do get it, you'll recognize that the ultra-patriotic, militaristic society, the propaganda-drenched nationalism, the genocide hidden behind freedom-spreading slogans,
Look how fair it
and more are all here being mocked. It adds another layer that makes the game more entertaining. I always find myself smiling when I hear my Helldiver shouting slogans about liberty while bombing the hell out of the automatons.
How about a nice cup of liberty?
Who did not start the war, by the way. They're striking back after what Super Earth did to them. Oh yeah, we're the bad guys here. If you want, there's a ton of lore you can read up on, or listen to on YouTube. And in connection with listening, I've got to mention the soundtrack, composed brilliantly by Wilbert Roget II. It perfectly matches Super Earth's crusade, blasting themes of duty, patriotism, liberty, and so on, even when, or especially when, you're committing war crimes. It's mostly orchestral with strong cinematic elements that push the aforementioned satire even further. You feel like a heroic soldier on a mission to deliver freedom and liberty, because, well, the soundtrack just declares you are, as it keeps celebrating your triumphs. It's woven seamlessly into gameplay. It doesn't react to your exact gameplay tempo like the brilliant dynamic music in Doom 2016, but it still drives the mood perfectly. Interestingly, I recently saw a video that recommended turning the music off. It's supposed to give the game creepier, more realistic vibe. And while I agree it makes the game feel different, I think the main sentiments the game tries to elicit is over-the-top heroic fun.
You have been a stalwart line of freedom.
So if you ask me, I definitely recommend dialing it up to 11. The only part I would actually endorse playing without music is in the Terminate Caves, introduced with the Into the Unjust update. The echoes of your teammates and the bugs, of course, create almost horror-like atmosphere. It's downright eerie, and a refreshing variation from the usual gameplay loop. For the rest of the game though, do yourself a favor and leave the music on. It just fits really well, from the heroic mission completed theme, with light trumpets for side objectives and big ones for the main,
Another step towards galactic liberation.
to the adrenaline-pumping track that plays during extraction.
Extraction shuttle inbound.
But the most epic one? That plays during the mission loading segment. See, I'm old. I'm used to co-op loadings looking like this. In Helldivers 2, thanks mostly to the aforementioned epic track, the loadings look like this. Oh, okay. Oh, it keeps going. Oh, yes! This is cool! I'm ready, I'm ready. I'm gonna deliver democracy so hard. Come on, let me at him. Come on, let's start, let's start. Oh yeah. And boom. I'll never get tired of these, just beautiful. And the beauty continues onto the planets too. Sure, some variations can get old fast, like the alien red grass on a plain grey stone. And sometimes when the stars align just wrong, you end up fighting on a planet with a color palette of a wet cardboard. But most other planets, especially the desert, ice, and the jungle types, have a real cinematic charm. Most notably when the action starts. The striking visuals come of course from many smaller elements working together. And even though everything works together really well, sometimes you can find an ugly spot. It usually shows up in the smallest visual details, from an odd angle, or in the character models. But honestly, that's absolutely fine here. Because of the game's fast-paced nature, you won't notice minor visual flaws unless you're looking for them. The odd angles are rare, and the only characters you really see are on your ship, not counting the civilians or the soldiers, cause you don't really interact with them from up close. And since the game doesn't have a single-player campaign that would make you care about these characters, it's okay they don't look okay. The Helldivers themselves look great, and for the cinematic charm I mentioned earlier, the game really only needed to polish two things. See, in my opinion, the biggest donors to the game's visual appeal, which helps the most with the immersion, are the dynamic lighting and the overall map composition. Firstly, the lighting is implemented brilliantly here. It creates striking day and night atmospheres and is a part of every small and big effect. Whether it's your flashlight cutting through darkness, a stratagem lighting up the ground as it drops, an orbital laser igniting everything in its path, the shimmer of a distant explosion, or the searing glare of a blast up close, lighting up nearby hills. The lighting constantly reinforces the intensity and scale of the battlefield. The game doesn't have the most advanced lighting technologies, but it makes great use of what it does have. Almost every light source carries rich, deep color, and the way those colors interact with the environment, especially when exploding, gives the game a warm and memorable atmosphere. By leaning into style rather than strict realism, it turns its limited tools into something far more cinematic and, dare I say, expressive. It could have easily been overdone, but instead it pushes right up to the edge of excess. That said, I should mention that I play with the bloom effect turned off. I generally do not like the effect in games, and especially not here, because to me it makes the visuals fall into the aforementioned excess. It's up to you, of course, but I recommend turning it off. The game feels grittier this way. And even without the effect, every fight still looks like it belongs in a Hollywood movie. But, you know, without the perverts and stupidity.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Secondly, the composition of each map deepens immersion even further. Every rock, hill, tree, clearing and structure fit naturally into the environment, with no glaring flaws or unrealistic visuals. Okay, to be fair, sometimes you can find a flaw. But this happens really rarely, and for randomly generated playgrounds, this is an achievement. Back on track. The maps often go vertical too. I love that you can climb a hill and look out over the entire battlefield, dotted with enemy outposts, points of interest, and beautiful backgrounds. But even more importantly, there are dynamic elements that make each battlefield feel alive and unpredictable. Specifically, enemies that can create localized, spore-filled fog, and weather effects like sandstorms, blizzards, acid rains, iron storms, I really hate these, and even fire tornadoes. All can hit at any time. These don't just look cool, they affect how you play, limiting visibility or throwing obstacles in your way. And I can't forget the explosions, which mesh with the maps seamlessly. These are genuinely impressive, multi-layered effects that often catch your eye even when you should be looking elsewhere. Usually in co-op games, the maps are fixed and spectacles are carefully placed. Here, every map is randomly generated, every point of interest is randomly placed, and you create your own spectacles whenever you want. And the maps both look and play better than most others in the genre. I know this might seem like a small detail, but the maps are the building blocks which we all enjoy delivering freedom on. And if the developers would make them boring or broken, the whole thing would have been a miss. Luckily, Arrowhead did not miss, and the maps play great. And with that wonderful lighting, and yes, other stuff too, every match feels like a brand new adventure you really wanna go on. And when you put all that stuff we just talked about together, the fun narrative, the soundtrack full of patriotic triumph, and the visuals that look like something from a sci-fi blockbuster, you start to see why Helldivers 2 feels so different from other co-op shooters. The satire by itself is funny, but it becomes even better when the music is cheering you on like you are humanity's last hope, even as you are dropping bombs that wipe out entire colonies. And the visuals don't just make it look good, they sell the whole joke. A mission where you are screaming about liberty while fire tornadoes rip through the battlefield and trumpets are blaring in the background isn't just another shooter moment, it's absurd comedy wrapped in genuine tension. You are caught between laughing at how ridiculous it all is and taking the fight seriously. Very few games can make you feel triumphant, horrified, and entertained all in the same mission. But this one pulls it off every time. Well, almost. The game is full of refined details, but also annoying glitches. Starting with the positives though, the planets you orbit have accurate day-night cycles and are visible from your ship. Vaulting, climbing and proning are quite realistic and the animations are well done. Helldivers make realistic comments based on what's happening to them.
Gotta fix this liberty-forsaken arm!
You get visibly dirty or bloody depending on the situation. Rocket sentries and launchers have blowback that can push you over. Your jetpack actually burns away your cape as you use it. You can see a super destroyer appear in the sky when someone joins your game. Snow and sand make matching prints, and not only of your steps. Arrowhead, where is my make an angel emote? Hellpods can be used to close bug holes, destroy structures, or as a last resort weapon. But the thing the developers spend the most time refining is surely the weapons. The experimental or futuristic ones are cool enough and have also plenty level of nice detail. But we obviously don't have anything to compare it to, so I won't focus on them much. But the weapons based on real-world templates behave in a remarkably realistic way. It's worth saying that Arrowhead could have gone all in on a flashy space design for every gun. Instead, most of the arsenal looks and behaves close enough to real firearms to keep a connection to the world we know. And just to be clear, when I say realistic here, I of course mean how they look, sound and handle. It's not hyper-realistic, but the developers try to make them as believable as they can. That said, the pursuit of more realism here sometimes comes at a cost, with certain weapons ending up less fun to use than they might have been otherwise. But I get ahead of myself. Let's continue with the positives. The launchers have proper blowback and projectile drop. Shotguns still do damage from afar. Automatic weapons have appropriate recoil spread. And of course, if you reload half-empty magazine, you lose it for good. It doesn't magically appear in your spare ammo. Even the crosshair shows you two things. First, it shows you the real center of a screen as you'd expect, and second, it shows you where your shot will actually go, because it considers weapons drag and your movement, like breathing. All around, very nice touches. I also like the fact that when it comes to destroying things like bot fabricators, the annoying bug holes, squid ships and so on, you can go about it in any way you want. This way doesn't actually work. Last small but nice detail I want to mention is the fact that your personal shield helps to protect you from more than just enemies. It also protects you from weather effects. Acid rain doesn't hurt you, and blizzards or sandstorms do not slow you down. When I first picked it up, it was a detail I was not expecting. All of these little things show how much heartfelt care the developers poured into the game. But that's not all. Arrowhead also tries to make your multiplayer experience better. Sometimes you might get kicked for dumb or petty reasons, because, well, the internet is full of ass. But if that happens, the game copies the current map so you keep all your gear and progress and can finish the mission solo. After getting kicked, you can even send an SOS beacon to invite others to finish the mission with you. But it often just does not work. And that leads us, finally, to the negatives. Nothing's perfect, and Helldivers 2 is no exception, especially since the game is cross-platform, live service, and frequently updated. And it's those updates that should bring cool new stuff to the game that usually break the current state of it. No way around it, the game can get buggy, and more buggy, and even more buggy. Arrowhead usually fixes the biggest problems fairly quickly, but you'll probably still run into issues, whether it's connectivity or gameplay related. And there's nothing more annoying than getting stuck. Thank God for friendly fire and teammates.
Rico! You know what to do! Yes, sir!
The difficulty options also have their issues. For new players, some levels scale in difficulty far too sharply, and for experienced players, the hardest difficulty, Super Helldive, often isn't that hard. Plenty of people can Super Helldive solo easily, and that can feel a little unfair. There are other drawbacks too. Some people do not like the Warbond system, especially when unlocking new stuff requires both super credits and medals. For some players, the missions can become repetitive very quickly. Base progression happens fast, and further progression relies heavily on new Warbonds, which can sometimes feel underwhelming. The Illuminate faction could use some polishing, since it's by far the least played, and for a good reason. The DSS station mechanic feels not finished, the game files on PC are currently absurdly large, and for a not so small number of unlucky players, the game can sometimes be literally unplayable. Also, some players feel that the armor penetration system and weapon balance in general just are not well designed. I say some players because if you're a casual player who enjoys a medium challenge and you play on lower difficulties, this probably doesn't bother you at all, and good for you. But for players enjoying higher difficulties, most weapons with light AP and even some with medium AP are either useless or outclassed. Enemies still have the same weak points as on lower settings, but there are far more of them, along with tougher foes whose weak points are immune to light AP or even foes who have non-weak points at all. This forces players to use whatever tools are most effective, whether they enjoy them or not, because one thing you really need on higher difficulties is efficiency. And when the game pushes your choice of weapons and stratagems by making others so much better, that's when the meta starts to form. On the other hand, some players might argue that this is exactly how the game is supposed to work. High difficulties push you into careful choices, and the meta exists to reward players who understand the system. From their perspective, light penetrating weapons are not a bad mechanic, but part of the challenge. Still, there's definitely room for improvement. As I mentioned earlier, the weapon system is really complex, and in my opinion, here it doesn't need to be. There are far simpler systems that could achieve the same thing without turning every weapon choice into a math problem. A simple fix is to make armor penetration levels scalable. Instead of light AP weapons doing nothing to medium or heavy armor, they would deal damage, just reduced, and weak point hits could scale the same way. Plus, customization items could help with this scaling, because right now the system feels half-finished anyway. Now, I'm not saying you should be able to upgrade a small SMG to the point where it has heavy armor penetration. No. But you should be able to level it up so it does at least some damage to all enemies or weak points. So if you want or need to take down a big target with enough effort, you can. Especially since weapons like that already exist. And I think it could really work, because the game isn't competitive. Fairness isn't really an issue. We're all working together against the environment. Letting players create their own meta loadouts wouldn't give anyone an advantage, but it would let more people enjoy the weapons they love after leveling them up while still keeping the challenge intact. And honestly, it would be a better change, because the current system doesn't work as intended. After almost 2 years and constant balance patches, most players still use the same 5 or 6 primary and secondary weapons out of 50. To summarize, even in PvE games, weapon balancing is important. It should be about giving players freedom and letting them enjoy the weapons they like, while still maintaining the challenge. But it should never come at the cost of making weapons completely ineffective or not fun to play. Yet, Arrowhead often seems to do exactly that. Instead of improving the weaker, unpopular weapons, they choose to nerf the ones players actually enjoy. You know something is wrong when your community starts dreading that any new weapons that feel good from the start will be the first thing you nerf in the next update. If that is the case, you should probably rethink the way you approach weapon balancing. And since I'm already giving advice nobody asked for, let me get something out of the way. Something that is way easier to potentially implement. I know the chance of someone from Arrowhead watching this video is about as likely as me and my ex getting back together. But one can dream. And I have an important plea for change. Arrowhead, please, replace smoke shells with gas shells. Nobody uses smoke in this game. We all had a meeting, we all voted, we all agreed. Smoke shells need to go, gas shells need to replace them. It would make the artillery cannon simply better. And let me take it a step further. An Eagle gas strike would be a dream come true. We already have an orbital gas strike, a gas rover, gas grenades, gas mines, and even a gas gun. So why not gas an Eagle? Oh, bad phrasing, I didn't mean it like that. For those of you who haven't played the game, gas is fun. It makes enemies take damage over time, lose track of everything around them, and start attacking blindly, usually each other. It's great for crowd control, which is really useful especially against bugs. Smoke, on the other hand, does nothing. Well, it's supposed to block the enemy's vision, make them lose track of you and let you escape. But it doesn't work half the time, and you know what? I don't want to escape the enemy. I want to fight every single one of them, because that is the fun, even if you die a lot. Anyway, these are all small negatives, or negatives that don't affect everyone. What does affect everyone are the audio issues. You can find yourself facing a lot of enemies at once in this game, which is part of its appeal. But the sound mixing can turn that into a problem. When each enemy makes a noise, and you are up against dozens of them, then add in the background ambience, weapons fire, music, and explosions, sometimes the game just cannot keep up. A few layers get lost, or they simply do not play at all. The worst issue, though, is that the biggest enemies can sometimes be the quietest. It is extremely frustrating when, right in the middle of the action, at the peak of your hell-diving skills, a 2-ton ground-stomping charger runs up from behind and kills you because you never heard it coming. I know making games is hard, but when a game from 2009, where you also fight a lot of enemies at once, can have its audio perfectly refined, a game from 2024 should be able to do the same. Take a look at this comparison. The audio is unedited and recorded on the headphones option in both games. First, a big stompy tanky enemy in Left 4 Dead 2. Perfect. You can and should hear every step that thing makes, even from very far away. Now, a big stompy tanky enemy in Helldivers 2. See what I mean? You can barely hear it, and the footsteps are not audible at all. I can hear reloading my small weapon fine, just not the colossal right next to me, capable of killing me in one charge. Ridiculous. Now, if you're watching this in 2026 or later, I hope it'll be fixed, because it was in the game for almost 2 years. And that is the really ridiculous part. It is not the biggest gripe I have, but I can absolutely understand why players get angry, and they do. To me, the biggest issue is that for a co-op game, there is surprisingly little cooperation required. As mentioned, you can solo every mission and every objective on every difficulty. Now, I'm not saying that's inherently a bad thing. What I mean is, it feels great to fight alongside other Helldivers. It's fun to assist with reloading someone's weapon, helping them shoot faster and cause even more mayhem. It's exciting to help open a vault and see what treasures are inside. And it's thrilling to fire from a FRV while someone else drives. But sadly, those are pretty much the only truly cooperative moments. I would just love to see more mechanics or objectives that require actual teamwork. Maybe even weapons that need 2 players to fire. Or something I've been thinking about ever since the solo silo stratagem dropped. See, this is basically a fun miniature missile silo. With a targeting system you can use anytime you wish, anywhere on the map, even over long distances. It packs a significant boom. but there are certain enemy structures it cannot destroy, like stratagem jammers or detector towers. And that makes sense. Those structures exist to add further challenge. You need to get close to them to take them down. But what if there was a way to turn this into a moment of real cooperation? Imagine if 2 or more Helldivers could time their strikes together, stacking their booms within a short window, to make more destructive force. We can call it combined damage or whatever. The point of this is that even those tougher structures, like jammers or detector towers, could actually be destroyed if players managed to sink their shots. It would pay off for those players who actually try to cooperate, and it would be a good high-risk, high-reward mechanic. You would absolutely need good timing, which could be helped with a timer ping. Because if you missed that short window of damage combining, nothing would happen and you would lose 2 shots. But if it did work, it would feel great and earned. A hell yeah moment that would encourage more cooperation. Maybe it's just me, but I get the most satisfaction here
Mag's empty!
when I'm working with others,
Thank you.
in any way or form. And I would just love to see more of that. After all, we're in this hellish struggle together. And even though I don't take Helldivers 2 that seriously, and I definitely don't play it as much as I did at launch, I'm genuinely starting to feel frustrated with Arrowhead. And it's not just the lack of co-op elements or the constant nerfs. No. It's the ongoing identity crisis that's been going on for better part of 2025, about whether they want the game to be hard fun or easy fun. But unfortunately, as of now, the game sits awkwardly in between, and the fun factor suffers because of it. When the game first released, it leaned much more toward the hard fun, especially on the highest difficulty option.
Where's the real pretty now, man? You finished?
It still had its problems, of course, like rocket devastators being absolute precision with unlimited rockets. But even with issues like that, most of it worked better. The challenge felt earned and most players actually had to fight together to win. The problem is that in trying to fix those rough edges, the devs pushed things too far in the opposite direction and made the game, for experienced players, too easy. At the moment, if you join a game with 3 other players who are around level 150, it usually turns into 4 solo players racing to finish the objectives as fast as possible and killing everything with ease. There is a sweet spot when you learn the basics and start to get your grip, but as soon as you cross that 200 to 300 hour mark, the game gets a lot easier, and for some, a lot less fun. With luck, things will change for the better. And yes, I'm aware that making a long video like this about a live service game can be tricky, because the whole thing can change a lot in a short period of time. But I still wanted to make this anyway, because even right now, this is a fun, good game, with the potential to be an amazing one. And I really wish the developers will start pointing things in the right direction, since right now they seem to be missing quite a lot. Because at the time of making this video, Arrowhead introduced its latest big update, and it was a wild one. An amazing new planet type, a well thought out enemy boss, and a really well crafted warbond came alongside the most polarizing enemy variant yet, a not so well thought out mini-boss, and a technical bug fest that started breaking the game for a record number of players. And at first, it didn't seem that bad. After all, Helldivers have been through rough updates before. When the devs pushed the game into a state that upset most players, the community spoke up and the team corrected course, bringing it back to a high point after each big update. But this time, fixes are slower, the tone from the devs is different, and according to them, part of the problem lies in the old game engine that was never meant to handle this kind of pressure. The worrying part is that Arrowhead seemed to know about the engine issue, yet decided to push new content anyway, likely hoping it would be fine, instead of fixing it first. And the first patch that came out almost a month after the update did fix some of the enemy issues, yes, but it also, well, ignored the biggest flaws. like the crashes and the serious bugs. Now, I know that fixing a game like that takes time, but if a significant number of players are reporting constant crashes and game-breaking bugs, the first thing that I would do or say in a developer video patch thing would be to apologize and say a clear message that those problems are being actively and hardly worked on. I would not just smile and talk about a list of weapon buffs. So even though the patch was a step in the right direction, mostly, I mean, why? It is again the lack of proper communication that makes me point all this out, and honestly, it's just not a good look. Now I'm saying all this out of concern for you, dear future player, because even though it has been really fun for me, I don't wear pink helmet visor. I can see there are plenty of problems that need fixing, and I also see a lot of untapped potential here. So if the developers manage to fix the biggest issues, the game could turn into something genuinely fantastic, and I hope future players get to experience that version. The problem is that right now, the game is arguably at its lowest point so far, in terms of community sentiment. So if the technical issues are not fixed and the developers keep wasting goodwill of the players, the chances of the game actually dying are very real. It's happened before. And if it actually does die, well, that's why there is a certain title on the thumbnail. But I hope it will not come to that. I hope the devs will fix and fulfill what they need to. Because even now, at its lowest point, there's still a good reason why we dive. There are some major technical flaws at the time of making this video, and I hope Arrowhead has fixed them by the time you watch it. But even with these flaws right now, I would wholeheartedly recommend Helldivers 2. With one caveat. If the game is actually unplayable for you, crashing or breaking in ways that make it unfun, I of course cannot recommend it. In that case, ask for a refund, leave an honest review, and complain loudly, so we can hold the developers accountable and make them own up to it. That said, for me, the game works fine, so I will continue this video from my perspective. Please keep that in mind. So even though I would recommend it, the game is at its best when you approach it more casually, not when you feel the need to play the hardest difficulty every time, not when you expect every mechanic to be absolutely flawless, and not when you demand every update to be an instant hit. But when you simply want to jump in and have some spectacular, lighthearted fun. There are definitely parts of the gameplay that can feel unpolished, and I even agree with many of those criticisms, but they don't ruin the experience for me, because of the amount of choice we have here. If one feature doesn't click, I can just shift my focus on something else that does. For example, if the new type of bugs isn't fun for me, I pick another planet to fight the usual enemies. And if the bugs as a whole become bothersome, I go play against another faction altogether. Or, if the developers add a new weapon or stratagem that feels broken, I just stick with the many others that already work for me. And if a new warbond doesn't include anything I like, I don't mind, because I can still access it without spending real money. And believe it or not, I get it. Farming credits can get tedious for some, especially if you're a solo or new player. It takes time and effort to earn them in-game. But the important thing is that the option exists. Some people act like grinding is some horrible injustice, but the alternative of locking everything behind a paywall and forcing players to pay up would be far worse. At least this way, you have a choice, and it's also what allows a live service game to stay afloat in the first place. You disagree with my sentiments? That's fine. I just hope Arrowhead continues to refine the game so we can all enjoy it fully. But for me, even with its shortcomings, Helldivers 2 still feels incredibly unique to play. The gameplay can be cinematic, the gunplay is satisfying, the events entertaining, the mechanics spectacular, and the views picturesque. It doesn't do anything groundbreakingly new, but what it does do, for the most part, hits its mark. Take emotes for example. It's not the first game to have them, but here they usually feel much more satisfying. Sure, there are a couple just for fun, but you won't find any silly dances here. Most of them fit with the narrative and gameplay. When you salute or hug someone, it usually means you've survived an adrenaline-pumping cinematic battle or contributed your squad's part in a community-wide order with thousands of other Helldivers. So I'm not saying that Helldivers 2 reinvented emotes or made them objectively better, just that they are framed to match the whole militaristic vibe. And the fact that they don't cross the border of that frame is what makes them land harder here. And emotes are probably the most minorist of examples. Take something more serious, like the violence your Helldivers experience. It is brutal. Making your Helldivers suffer and die in horrific, realistic ways is of course a smart and deliberate choice. The way your Helldiver screams in panic when danger gets too close,
I need stems!
or the way you see bloody limbs and torsos after an explosion or dropping a hellpod hitting you, amplifies the contrast between the satirical tone and the horrifying facts of war. If Helldivers died like characters in Left 4 Dead, for example, you know, just lying on the ground, bodies intact, the satire and humor would be dampened and not nearly as sharp. And this thought-out approach defines pretty much every aspect of the game. The explosions are ground-shaking, so you truly feel like a part of a brutal galactic war. The weapons are fun to fire, yet heavy and violent in a way that makes every shot feel costly. The worlds themselves are harsh and unwelcoming, but it is the enemies that make them truly dangerous. And lastly, the narrative ties everything together, feeding you patriotic propaganda that only makes the grim reality on the battlefield stand out more. Everything cooperates and backs each other up in this wonderful synergy. And there's one more thing I want to mention. I don't plan on making many videos about multiplayer games. I much more enjoy the, let's say, private experiences that single-player games bring. Plus, multiplayer communities can usually be annoying to say the least. But the reason I actually made a 60-minute video about Helldivers 2 is mostly because of how much fun the game itself is, but also partially because of the people who play it. Sure, it's not perfect. Idiots these days are like microplastics, you can find them everywhere. But over the last 2 years, I've been amazed at how much fun, understanding, and genuine help I've gotten from the people playing Helldivers 2.
Thank you.
And the best part is, it's infectious. I remember when I first started, veteran divers would help me with information or stratagems I didn't have at the time. And now, at level 150, with hundreds of hours on my cape, I'm happy to do the same for the new players. I'm not sure if it's the game's narrative, the co-op mode, or just the state of the real world. Either way, it doesn't change my opinion. This is one of the best communities I've ever experienced in 2 decades of gaming, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. You don't have to take my word for it, but when the game's director himself makes a Reddit post saying how kind and empathetic this community is regarding welcoming new players to the game, you know those aren't empty words. And I think this is worth mentioning, especially if you haven't played the game yet and spent time on Reddit or similar places. The Helldivers 2 subreddits are very active right now, but they're also quite divisive. You'll often see one post praising something in the game as the best thing ever, and right next to it another calling that same thing horrible or unbalanced. And I don't mean complaints about broken features like crashes or serious bugs. Those are absolutely fair, and I hope Arrowhead never takes them for granted. What I mean is the subjective stuff. Posts about enemies that feel unfair, or balance changes that supposedly ruin someone's favorite weapon or stratagem. And I understand that for some players these things matter a lot, but they don't affect everyone in the same way. But I don't think these negative posts are strictly bad either. Even if some of them could be downright silly, people are passionate fans and strong feelings come with passion. Honestly, I think it's great, because the worst kind of discourse around a game is no discourse at all. And why I'm telling you this is to remind you of a simple but often forgotten truth. Online communities rarely reflect the majority of players. You shouldn't form your opinion of Helldivers 2 solely on what you read there, whether the posts are glowing or bitter. The only opinion that really matters is your own, based on your own experiences. And that goes for YouTube reviews and essays too. A good review should lay out the facts and then share perspective. And videos like mine should be taken with an even bigger grain of salt. I don't make these to convince you to buy the game. I make them because I enjoy the process and hopefully to entertain you. Now, since I just spent all that time telling you not to trust anyone's opinion about the game, this is the part where I tell you my final opinion about the game. So finally, my closing words. Why? Why do we helldive over and over again to fight computer-controlled enemies? Why do we make angry posts about unbalanced mechanics or game-crashing bugs, yet still come back to play? Why do we spend countless hours making content about it or crafting elaborate cosplays of faceless soldiers? Why this game out of so many others? Well, I could repeat the fact that Helldivers 2 offers many individual aspects that work really well, especially together, but the simple truth is that this is the most glorious mayhem I have ever played. And that is the special ingredient, the pure, chaotic, explosive fun of the gameplay, where you can get wiped out by anything. The enemies, the environment, your own negligence, and of course your teammates. And I also think that many people see great potential here, not only to fix what is broken, but to add more features that are even more chaotic, more spectacular, more fun. But even now, whether you're a solo or a team player, you can enjoy it as a lighthearted co-op adventure full of ridiculous situations, or crank up the difficulty for a tougher challenge that might just make you sweat. You might stick to the weapons and stratagems that bring you the most joy, or carefully build a loadout to become the most effective Helldiver of them all. You can lean into the satire and gimmicks, or you can simply choose your own battles. The gameplay loop feels fresh, and apart from its current not-so-great technical state, I love it all. And the things I experience most here are feelings of excitement and tension, absurdity and panic, empowerment and fellowship. And every time I finish my objectives, that bright blue light of the extraction beacon brings a palpable sense of relief. At least until the final fight for extraction, where it sometimes turns into a ferocious battle for survival. And not everyone always makes it on board. But when you do, when you get on board just in the nick of time, that's one of the most triumphant feelings in any game. I'm not sure if the game will still be played years from now, but I'm glad I was here when it peaked, and that I had the chance to help spread freedom and democracy across the galaxy. And one thing I am sure of, I am glad I didn't miss Helldivers 2. Well, that's it from me. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, and that bell thing would be appreciated. If you really like the video, I have a Patreon you can support me on. There, I release videos early and of course without ads. If you plan to stick around, looking forward to seeing you here. Thank you again, and in the meantime, play with heart.